not gonna leave if it's gonna get hot. Are we?
I see your point. Be a long drive, huh?
Yes, we're okay. 30 minutes.
Guess we have no Ed and Lou tonight.
Supposed to be.
Oh, the guy way right behind you. Just a second. Second. Carol. Second, ain't it?
Huh?
Glad you beat my voice.
1-1 in the bottom of the sixth.
Okay.
You came back and took the lead.
Okay.
Yeah.
I figured you would have known who that was.
Do we have some extra ones? Okay, whatever you, no problem. Okay, thanks. Mr. Moss, I made it back. Thank you.
No problem.
Rachel's out of town. She's not coming. She's out of town.
Still on mission, something?
Tell people I'm out of town.
Yes, you could.
You can always tell people you're out of town. I'll be out of town on vacation.
Good, how are you?
Good, thanks.
I'm ready when you are.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the July 18th, 2017 regular council meeting for the City of Brook Park. I'll ask the clerk to please call the roll.
Scott?
Here.
Bergio?
Here.
Salvatore?
Here.
Troyer?
Here.
Powers?
Here.
McDonald? Mancini?
Here.
Okay, Councilwoman McDonald did notify the office, so she'll be listed as an excused absence. Would everyone please stand and join in the Pledge of Allegiance?
Pledge allegiance to the flag
Of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, thank you. We'll move to item C on the agenda, which is approval of minutes of the preceding meetings. Number one is the regular council meeting that was held on June 6, 2017.
Motion to approve those June 6, 2017 meeting minutes.
Support.
Okay, there's a motion to approve. It's been properly supported. Is there any discussion? Seeing no discussion, clerk, please call the roll.
Mancini?
Yes.
Bergio?
Yes.
Scott?
Yes.
Salvatore?
Yes.
Troyer?
Yes.
Powers? Yes.
Okay, the meeting minutes for June 6, 2017 have been adopted. We'll move to item number 2, which is a special council meeting that was held on June 14, 2017.
Once again, motion to approve those special council meeting minutes on June 14th.
Support.
There's a motion to approve. It's been properly supported. Is there any discussion? Seeing no discussion, I'll ask the clerk to please call the roll.
Mancini?
Yes.
Scott?
Yes.
Bergio?
Abstain.
Salvatore?
Yes.
Troyer?
Yes.
Powers? Yes.
Okay, the meeting minutes for June 14, 2017 have been adopted. We'll move to item number 3, which is the regular council meeting that was held on June 20th, 2017.
Motion to approve those June 20th minutes.
Support.
You'd think you'd get better as you get along.
You would think, long day.
Okay,
Hot day.
motion has been moved, has been properly supported. Is there any discussion on the minutes?
Mancini? Oh,
Seeing
sorry.
none, please call the clerk, please call the roll.
Mancini?
Yes.
Scott?
Yes.
Bergio?
Yes.
Salvatore?
Yes.
Troyer?
Yes.
Powers? Yes.
Okay, the meeting minutes for June 20th, 2017 have been adopted. We'll move to item number D, which is reports of standing committees. We'll go to aviation and environmental. Councilwoman Powers.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm happy to report that the airports has been a little bit busier this week and next, thanks to our bowling tournament. It's a nationwide bowling tournament, and the children, teenage bowlers have been in, and their parents or guardians, the people that are bringing them in, and they're using our bowling alley as well as the one on West 130th at Brook Park, and from Mentor to Canton to Youngstown. So they will be here for about 10 days, and it's good for us. Good business. Thank you, Mr.
Okay,
Chairman.
thank you. Okay, Finance Committee, Chairman's not here, so we'll go to the co-chair. Councilman Troyer.
Thank you, Mr. Council President. Finance Committee has nothing on tonight's agenda, and that concludes the report for the Finance Committee.
Okay. And we'll go to the Legislative Committee, Chairman Troyer.
Thank you, Mr. Council President. Legislative Committee has 2 items on tonight's agenda, and also, like as usual, there are a few things in the committee, in the Legislative Committee. If anybody would like them pulled out, if you are the sponsor, just shoot myself or Michelle an email or a phone call to Michelle, and she'll send me an email. Let me know you want it brought out, and I will bring it out at the next available caucus meeting. Thank you.
Okay, we'll go to Parks and Recreation. Councilman Mancini.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm going to hit a couple things here today, and I'm sure the mayor's going to touch on some of them too. Mary Ann, our rec director, had a loss in her family, so we didn't expect a report from her at all, and so Andrea stepped up big time, and me and him worked on a nice little report for you, and I think it's a pretty informative one, but our condolences to Mary Ann and her family. The luau at the water park, that'll be August 4th from 6 to 9. I remember stopping in there last year, and it was a pretty nice little event. I always say that, but they generally are, and a lot of people have a lot of fun and get carried away with the dancing and, that little thing where you go underneath the stick and all that stuff. I couldn't do it, and a lot of others couldn't do it, but them young kids do. So that's August 4th from 6 to 9. The dog swim, that'll be August 19th from 11 to 1. That's always a big, big success over there. I know a lot of people like to get them dogs and get them in that water. Hopefully the weather will be conducive with that. Football, cheerleading, tennis, registrations have been extended. Okay, so I know we're getting towards that end of the month. We're doing pretty good on the sign-ups. I actually looked in today. Could it be a little better? Well, it could always be a little better, but it's moving along pretty well. Everybody kind of drags because no one's really actually thinking football now until the Browns start training camp. This is the last week, and you've seen them out there today for our softball and our baseball. My girls went 1-1 yesterday. One of them is going to be playing a little later tonight. So hopefully we get a good productive meeting in here, and I could get there. But this is what I do, and this is what I choose to do, and I'm happy to be here. But I love my girls too, so I wish them luck tonight. But there's a lot of good games going the rest of this week. So if you could get out there and see some ball. I believe the AA boys were over at Kennedy last night, and they'll be there again on, what would that be, Thursday, Friday? Tomorrow, okay. And got our little guys over here today, and we got our girls over at American Legion. So, get out and support them. It's a lot of fun. I know them kids like the more people in them stands. I know they really enjoy it. The water park, 2 things that have been going pretty well. The water park's doing pretty well over there. Obviously, vacation time and all that other stuff. So we're not doing too bad with our water park this year. Home days. Hopefully, almost all of you were there. And you've seen the success we had. I'm sure the mayor's probably going to touch a little bit on that, too. There was a lot of good, exciting events over there. The parade, wonderful. I think a lot of people had a lot of fun. I think almost half of Brook Park was in that parade. So there's plenty of candy to be abound. So a couple other things I want to touch on real quick. One of our members of our rec commission, Rich Kostronic, had passed away a few weeks ago. When I came into coaching when I was a little kid, they used to pay us to do the little A-boys. That was the first year of pitching, and I don't think I was more than 14 or 15. And me and Billy Huffsey used to do that to get our summer paycheck. And 3 firemen asked me to help, Bill Bound and Al Riker and Bob Schneer asked me to help. Well, that was baseball, and I enjoyed it, and I met a lot of lifelong people during that. And with football, it would have been Tom Caveney, Joe Lear, Rich Janis, and Rich Kostronic. And I was still a kid. I don't think I was more than 16 or something, playing school ball and asked to help out. And again, lifelong memberships. Rich was a great guy. You know, back in the day, he was all over the place. He's been a little sick the past 10 years, but he's still stuck in to be on our rec commission. And him and his family really gave their heart out for Brook Park. And they, you know, he's somebody who'll be sorely missed. Rich always had a lot of love for everybody and always had something really nice to say to everybody. Two other things I want to touch on. I got my shop in Brook Park for the month of July. So if you're in Brook Park, get out and shop, okay, and do it in Brook Park. And on Monday, I'm going to have my left hip done. It took me 19 years to do my right, and I did that 3 years ago, and I'm not playing around this time, and, you know, I'm going to go get it done, and hopefully when I wake up from some surgery, all my council colleagues will be there, and they'll all be smiling and holding hands, and it'll all be good. So let's hope on that, okay? But I
Not
just...
in body, will be there in spirit.
Okay, all right. But that's all I got, and I appreciate it, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. We'll move to the Planning Committee. Councilman Troyer.
Thank you, excuse me. Thank you, Mr. Council President. Planning Committee, the meeting was canceled due to lack of request for approval. I'm still waiting to see the white blue line plan for their landscaping come across planning as it was required in the legislation we passed for the grant for them. So I'm still waiting for that to come through planning. Hopefully that comes through soon and then get squared away. Other than that, that's the end of the report for the Planning Commission.
Thank you. We'll go to the Safety Committee. Councilman Salvatore.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Tonight's agenda, we have two items, one being the lease purchase of 30 new police tasers, and the other being for the purchase of 4 new vehicles for the police department. And I would encourage all my colleagues on council tonight to suspend so we can move forward on this. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. We'll go to the Service Committee. Councilman Bergio.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Service Committee has no report tonight.
Thank you. We'll go to Board of Zoning Appeals. Councilman Scott.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Board of Zoning did meet on Monday, July 10th. We had 2 new items and 1 table item. The first item was a request for 4-foot side lot line variance to install a pool at 13650 O'Donnell Drive. That was passed and approved. And the other one was request a variance to install a 6-foot wood fence beyond the rear line of the main structure at 5774 Smith Road. And that one also was passed. And we had 1 table item. It was the request the following variances at 18256 Sheldon Road. And we moved and put that one back. We retabled that one. And that's all I have. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. That concludes the items under letter D. We'll move to letter L, which is reports of special committees. We'll go to the Southwest General Health Center trustee, Councilman Salvatore.
Thanks again, Mr. Chairman. At the last board meeting, we approved the 2017-2018 insurance renewals, which also included participation with our partner UH. The following subsidiary board reappointments were recommended. For the Holdings Committee was Mary Ann Fries, Terry Kravik, and Jim Shepard. For the Southwest General Medical Group was John Alton, MD, Wayne Brassel, Mary Ann Fries, Olga Kovesic, MD, Marilyn McNamara, MD, and Edward White, MD. Under Protective Services was Dave Bartolota, Andre Maldonado, Eileen Harold, and Brad Rao, and also Al Mates. And a report from the President, he has told us that we're doing very well in the first-year employee turnover. We've reached our goal. In fact, it exceeded our goal. It's very near and dear to our CEO's heart to keep people there, and he's doing a very fabulous job in that department. We're not losing the employees when they come. They really enjoy working there and they stay, and that's a tribute to what he's been doing there. In awards and recognition, and including our partnership, we received the Lantern Award, which was presented to Southwest General Emergency Department, as well as being recognized along with our partner UH as being one of the top workplaces for the 2017 year by the Plain Dealer. And as far as growth is concerned in our hospital, the Southwest Behavioral Health Program continues to expand. And I'll be reporting more about that as we get through the remainder of the year. And in closing, Mr. Chairman, members of council, and the residents, I was appointed by the chairman, and it was passed unanimously from the board, and now I will also be serving on the President and CEO Review Committee. It's a real high honor. I'm really proud to have been selected, and hopefully I'll be reporting some things that we'll be doing later in the year with that, too. Other than that, Mr. Chairman, that's all I have.
Okay, thank you. We'll go to the Berea Board of Education Committee. Councilman Bergio.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I attended the school board meeting yesterday. The superintendent gave a facilities update. He reported that the district planning groups visited several schools updating their facilities for ideas on how other districts with similar contractors are doing. They visited Akron, Firestone, Gilmore, Medina, Wadsworth, and Lakewood. The architects are visiting several sites this week in Middleburg Heights, including Big Creek and Middleburg Junior High. The superintendent noted that the existing large parking lot was not as needed as when the building was a high school when many students drove to school. There will be more green space instead of asphalt since these younger students aren't driving. Anna Chapman, board president, asked if the ball diamonds could remain. The architects said they will look into it and take that in consideration. The architects also will be visiting Brook Park School buildings this week. He said that last night that he will meet with Middleburg Heights Mayor also. I asked if he is planning to meet with Mayor Coyne as well when visiting our schools in Brook Park. He said that he will also meet with Mayor Coyne eventually. On the agenda was a resolution to authorize spending not to exceed $15,794,276.76. Several union members were present at last night's meeting with concerns about C.T. Taylor construction and wanted to assurances that their local union members would also be considered by work that would be done by the board this coming year and next year. They included Ed Tuma of IBEW Local 38 and several other 38 members, some of which are residents of Brook Park. Also in attendance was retired ironworkers member and Berea resident Bill DeVito, who along with Ed Tuma came to the podium to speak about the performance of C.T. Taylor Company and the fact that they are not a local company. They're located about 80 miles away. Although the board voted 5-0 to pass a resolution not to exceed the $15 million plus, the board attorney said that they would look into the past project of C.T. Taylor that were a concern to the unions that were present last night. The attorney said that the current and recently furnished projects by the company had no real concerns that they are aware of. I'll keep council updated on this subject. I plan to attend the next board meeting, which again will be during council's summer recess on August 7th, and give a report at our next regular council meeting, which will be on August 15th. And that concludes my report, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Councilman. That concludes items under letter E. We have nothing under letter F or letter G. So we'll move to letter H, which is reports and communications from the mayor. Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd just like to pass along condolences to the Kostanek family, and I don't have to dwell anymore. His contribution to our recreation department over several decades, I think Councilman Mancini outlined his contribution, and we thank him and his family for their service. I would also extend my condolences to Mary Ann Fields, our recreation director, and her loss of her brother was only in his 50s. Pretty tough year for her for losses in the family. And finally, last but certainly not least, is Jim Brown. And Jim Brown and his wife Mary Ann were longtime employees of the city. As a matter of fact, Jim Brown was the last stationary fireman that the city used to have, and that's how we hired him. We needed one to operate when Milt Marnone retired many years ago. We didn't have one, and we had to have at least one because of our boiler operations in the city. So Jim served long and well and was enjoying his retirement, and two fine people. Mary Ann is the president of our senior club, so even after retirement, they were giving back. I'd also be remiss, I want to welcome, didn't recognize him with his full beard out there. Sandy McNair is here this evening. He served on the Board of Elections. He did his time there like I did. It's a trying thing. He says he's here today to see good government. Well, you're going to see one of the finest governments around. I hope you have anything. You're going to be very dehydrated by the time you leave here. Maybe when you come back the next time, we'll have some air conditioning for you. So we want to welcome Sandy this evening. I want to say that our tenacity has paid off for the first time in 3 years. We're having productive conversations with Ford Motor Company about the redevelopment of the Ford facility. We had a principal in here, some things I can talk about, some things I can't talk about, to talk about a mixed-use development on the Ford facility. And so we've had beginning negotiations with them and discussions about what we'd like to see on the facility and what they would see as from a development standpoint. What I can say publicly is that we are the lead city for the plasma energy group, the plasma igniter, that would create thousands of jobs in the city of Brook Park. As a matter of fact, I delivered the proposal 2 weeks ago Wednesday to the Vice President of the United States on the tarmac at Burke Lakefront Airport. John Fairchill, who's a local developer here in Cleveland, Ohio, is the CEO of the American Plaza Energy Group, and it's his intention, he's talked to directors at Ford Motor Company, and he would like to locate his operation in the old aluminum foundry at the plant. And so if we can land this will really be an opportunity, not only for our citizens, but we think Northeast Ohio, to give you a brief synopsis of what this plasma igniter can do. It replaces spark plugs, and it would almost eliminate the need for our automobile operations in the United States to have energy fuel emission standard tests to be incorporated into a higher standard, which costs more for American cars, and literally eliminates emissions by automobiles or trucks that use the plasma igniter. So at the proper time, I'm going to have Mr. Fairchill come and make a presentation. We're closer than ever before with Fordland and working on a redevelopment of that property, I'm pleased to announce. It doesn't mean that they're opening tomorrow, but we've come a long way. So folks know, you heard me talk about possible litigation with them. Clearly, as they stand right now, they're in violation of several ordinances of the city. We have tried for years for them on working on a remedy that would redevelop the property and clean it up. And this is the greatest movement that we had. We have Dave Dubinsky as the new head of Fordland with a new attitude, a new energy, and I'm very pleased to say that this is the first time I feel confident that there's a light at the end of the tunnel with the Ford's operation over there, which most people know for so many years was the lifeblood of the city. One of their good news for us, the Vice President indicated to me that the President has reinstituted the Space Council under the President of the United States, and the Vice President is going to be the head of that. And his first words out of his mouth coming out of the plane was to talk about NASA Glenn. So I think we have people now, once again, that are committed to space, and in particular, again, our now largest employer in the city, which is NASA Glenn. So we got good news on those fronts, and I hope they continue to move in that particular area. So other than that, Mr. Chairman, I don't have anything to report this evening. I hope everyone enjoyed home days. If you didn't, I don't know where you were at. But the Zambelli fireworks people, we don't pay them any more money every year, and they continue to do a marvelous job. How they do it, I have no idea, but it was magnificent, and we thank all of those who participated, and once again, the chief and the fire department, the chiefs of the various safety divisions. We had no incidents, and I want to have to say that the safety open house was magnificent as well. So many of the young kids enjoyed that. I think our folks over there at Police and Fire did a great job, and this year, and with their open house, they lifted a notch, and they should be congratulated for participating. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mayor. Council, you have any questions to the mayor? Councilwoman Powers?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Mayor, could you give us an update on the Snow Road construction, and at the Best Western, I noticed they're putting in a new driveway. Is that a temporary drive just for the construction project, or will that be a permanent drive? And then across the street at the Howard Johnson's, could you give us an update on what's happening there?
Okay, the Snow Road construction, believe it or not, is on schedule. They had 180 days. They had some rain, there were some problems, but it's very difficult with the density of the usage along there, particularly the commercial areas. We thank people for their patience, but they're right on schedule. The driveway at the Best Western, they had a temporary driveway on snow that has been taken out, and as far as I know, replanted, and a new driveway apron was put in on Fry Road in accordance with the construction on Fry. Okay. And the other hotel still remains closed, and I don't see in the foreseeable future that Howard Johnson is going to reopen. They've got some massive structural problems there that need to be addressed. So,
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
you're welcome.
Councilman Mancini?
Thank you, Council President. Mayor, a couple things if I could. On that Ford, and I know you had stated very clearly that we're so in the genesis stage of all of it. Is there any possible land acquisition that, pertaining more towards us where we could do some other development possibly, or is that still off on the burner yet?
The major issue is, we've had two folks that went into them and gave them proposals about remedial action on the property. The people who have looked at it have done this around the country. There's two of them, and only two of them. As a matter of fact, one of them just did the power plant down on the lakefront. A gentleman out of Pennsylvania analyzing what the Ford has its own power plant over there, which seems to be the largest cost. There's some argument about how much it's going to cost to clean it up and who's going to pay for it. In one instance, one of the redevelopers said they'd post a bond, they would assume all the responsibility. Ford has some concerns about that because in cases in the past, they've been burnt, they've agreed to a development, they couldn't produce, and then Ford was left with the liability of cleaning it up. So that's kind of complicated. I think we're working through that. I think that they see that the folks that we have talked about, it may have come about with a out-of-state developer does it, with using local people that have done work at Ford in reclamation throughout the country, and we're hoping that works out. So that stage, we seem to be working towards a resolution. It's what kind of development and how we're going to maximize. I've made it clear to them that the plasma igniter is very, very important for this city. Okay, and we want to see the major thrust of that facility to be used for manufacturing. We believe it has the capabilities to do so many different things. Also, its intermodal capabilities at some of the finest rail siding in the United States can be utilized for distribution and things like that. So, say for instance, if we had the property available, I don't think IKEA would have looked anyplace else, to give you an example.
Gotcha.
All right, we've had local realtors, commercial, industrial realtors that have come to us with a lot of things, and Ford just wouldn't take a look at them. Now we're talking about what can all of us bring to the table, and is there a way forward in reclaiming the property, and we believe that we're moving in the right direction together, where before we were kind of struggling in isolation from one another, and I think that has a lot to do with the new head of Ford Land.
Okay. Hey, and a few other things if we could touch on real quick, things I've heard as I've walked in home days and as I've been out and about. The lights on Snow Road, some people just feel like maybe the lights maybe ain't timed. Is there anything on that?
Well, they're correct. A woman sent me an email saying it took her 21 minutes to get from Park and Fly to I-71. She was correct. The chief went out there themselves. So we went with ODOT and we worked that, and it's better than it was before. It's not perfect. But again, it's the density of the traffic with the airport and the usage on Snow Road of people traveling through our town. It's still the main artery for the airport for so many people. So again, we think we have worked through that in correcting the major problems with ODOT.
Okay. The September, I guess you'd call it State of the City at the Rec, are we still going to have that pertaining to our pool?
Yes.
Okay. All right, I just want to make sure that was still on the agenda.
I am actually planning on having a hearing in the pool.
That would be great, right on spot.
I think so.
Yes, the curbs.
Not in the pool, but in the pool area.
I'll be your exhibit A. You've put a little water in there, and I'll do the diving and the swimming. You could use me as the high curbs on the new streets, and I seen some being done on Snow Road. I gotta admit, Mayor, a lot of people love that. I mean, they love the big white street, but being done, to me, it makes a bad house look good, and a good house look real good, and a great house look real great. So they love the high curbs on them new streets. The last thing, some people touched on the water in the basement, and I'll finish on that. Is there any progress, anything on that, anything we're working on, looking at on that?
Well, as you know, we try to go and look at every issue, and we've been hit with some very unusual rains this year. What we found is most of the problems are coming through the walls. So in talking to several members of council, when we look at some of our community assistance programs next year in our budget, rather than looking at cross connections, that didn't seem to excite a lot of people. Maybe if there's many people that have to have their basements waterproofed, we can aggregate those like we do the sidewalks. Say there's 10, 12 homes that need that. Go out and get an aggregate bid for them to save them some money, and we do it as part of an assistance program, because that seems to be the major portion of the problem that we see. Now, it's not to say that some still aren't cross-connected, or that some of them it's a volume issue. That's not to say that that's not the case, but we're finding the majority of the problems exist because of that reason. So that may be something that we look at next year, and funding a 50-50 program to encourage people, because again, that enhances their property values, which helps us.
Okay. All right, Mayor, I appreciate it. I know I loaded you with 5, and I appreciate it. That's all I have, Mr. Council President. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilman Troyer?
Thank you, Mr. Council President. Mayor, I have a couple questions pertaining to engineering, since he's not here this evening. One is the 2017 roads program still on schedule? Everything's still looking good with that?
Yes, they are. All the projects have been bid. We've signed the contracts, and there should be pre-construction meetings coming. And with that, we'll send out the usual information to the residents so they know what's going on. As a matter of fact, I think I have the drafts on my desk that I got today. He's on a well-deserved vacation with his family, but everything's right on schedule.
Okay, and then continuing on engineering type stuff. On Snow Road, by the holiday.
Take care of.
Okay,
The answer to your question is yes.
well, the resident was concerned that they were going to put asphalt or cement or something in there, and it would exacerbate our flooding problem. So that's not going to happen. That's going to be
I don't know
landscape.
how that's related, and we don't have a general flooding problem, so to make that statement's not correct. Anything with the construction that is taken away has to be replaced in kind. So if there's
Again,
grass
that's what the
there-
resident was concerned about.
That's correct, and what I said was, I don't know how it would add to any flooding issues, but by the nature of the contract, they have to replace whatever they remove for the construction.
Okay, so that'll be replaced with grass or landscaping of some sort.
If that's what it was before, that's what it should be replaced.
Not impervious service. Okay. And I want to ask you about the white property, Blue Line. Again, I still haven't seen that on planning. I'd like to see that come through planning. They did try to do some landscaping over there. It's, when I went over past there the other day, it was all full of weeds. They still have, and the other company did move in. It's a shadow of the old company, what Blue Line was supposed to bring in, and they still have all the mounds of debris in the back of the lot there. So are we planning on doing something about that and making?
Of course we will. I don't agree with your analogy. It's a shell of the other company. As a matter of fact, it's probably a better company that's in there, more substantial company. So your analysis I don't agree with. The
Of course
cleanup
you
of of course I don't, because it's a statement that you have no qualification to make, quite frankly. At any rate, we have an obligation to get it cleaned up. I'll make sure Ted gets over there tomorrow, and Chris Corrigan, and we'll get it cleaned up so they conform to the Planning Commission's requests.
Okay, and last item, the Sheldon Road quiet zone overpass. Do we have any update on that, and when the residents will get some relief from the noise?
Okay, well, as you know, ideally, the best way to do that is to get the grade separation, whether it's going to be under or over, you have to be determined by design. And we are working on that, and we'd have to get Berea to participate in that. ODOT has issues with the Eastland Road crossing, and that seems to be the best one, so we'll keep working on it. That's going to be a substantial project, If they're going to do it that way, it would be idealistic for our people in the city, because literally there wouldn't have to be the sounding of any horns in the city whatsoever. So as soon as I get an update on that, matter of fact, when the engineer comes back from vacation, I know he's been in some dialogue with the Ohio Rail Commission.
Okay, and I apologize, I did have one more thing that I just thought of. The intersections at 237 in Sheldon and Angle in Sheldon, getting a lot of calls lately about the traffic, the people cutting down Grossi to get around the one because there's no turn signals on either one of them. The people coming out of at 237 in Sheldon, the people coming out of the gas station there on Berea side, ever since that's open, that's been a real problem, making a left-hand turn going north and then making a left-hand turn onto Sheldon. It's been matter of fact, one of the guys from Dante's called me about that a while ago. So I would hope we could maybe look into that with Berea, and then of course the other one's Middleburg, and that's been a problem with people cutting through Grossi, speeding down through there, trying to avoid the traffic. And again, there's no left turn signals there. So I think it's come to the time where the traffic's at both these intersections might require turn signals, and maybe we should look into doing a traffic study there. Thank you.
Okay. I don't know if you answered your own question or you want me to answer it. To put those in requires the state warrants to be met to put those in. For years, we've tried to do that, and they didn't meet it. So we could take another look at that, maybe with the new truck filling station there and gas station. The increased traffic may or may not warrant that. As far as the Engle and Sheldon Road and them going down Grossi, I'm not, this is the first that I've heard of that. And again, we'd have to look at the warrants and see what that is. Again, you know, what causes a major problem there is the width of the pavement in Middleburg Heights and our corresponding pavement here. And as you see, the UPS trucks still use it, so that creates some more problems. But I'll have the engineer look at it and see if they meet the warrants for an application there, and then we probably have to get the other two cities to share the cost of the light, so we'll take a look at it.
Thank you. That's it.
Council, any other questions to the mayor? Okay. Mayor, do you have anything as far as reporting from engineer? Last time he was here, you had a report from him, or did he provide you?
I don't have anything,
Okay.
Jim, at this point in time, whether to just tell council, and Tom asked the question,
Right.
Councilman Troyer, about the construction projects, so they've been sold, and the notifications will be getting out, so other than that, no.
Okay. No, last time he missed a meeting, he
Yeah.
provided you a written report.
Yeah.
I didn't know if he did again. Okay, now, service director's not here too. Does council have any questions about service that maybe they could direct? to
He's
them?
on vacation as well.
Okay, seeing no questions from council, we'll move to the safety director, Mr. Burns.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have no report tonight other than to say that I appreciate the effort of the safety forces. I know the heat is a difficult time to work in. Right now, traffic is backed up on 71. If anybody's driving home tonight, it's going to take a little while to straighten it out. That's why the traffic's backed up on Angle. So please drive carefully, and that completes my report.
Okay, thank you. Council, any questions to the safety director? Mr. Bergio.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Dave, if you would, talk a little bit about that Pulse Point app that is available for the 4 cities now. I attended that
Right.
meeting that they had in Parma. I thought that was real worthwhile, and looks like it's going to save a lot of lives. So if you could let the public know what that's all about, I think it'd be really helpful.
Sure, Councilman. Through the chair to the councilman, the Pulse Point is an app on your phone that when there's a cardiac emergency and you're certified in CPR, if you're in the area, you get a signal on your phone if you can render assistance until the paramedics arrive. I have it on my phone. Other people that are CPR certified should have it. And if you have getting your hair cut somewhere and somebody next door suddenly has a cardiac problem, when the alarm goes to the local fire department, it also registers on your phone. And if you could render assistance immediately, the odds of survival are substantially increased. And the system's been in place for about a month now, a month and a half in this area through the Parma Regional Dispatch System. Other departments have it as well, and it seems to be working without much error right now. Things have been fine. But it is relatively new, and it is certainly another step enhancing the services offered to the citizens of the various communities that have it. And if it works as planned, our results with someone having a cardiac issue may be reduced. That's the goal. Thank you.
It's a great app, and anybody can download it, is that right? Anybody
That's
can download
correct.
it, yeah. But it's if you have CPR training, that's even better yet, because you're better prepared for helping someone like that. So bottom line is more people should get the CPR training, and that'd be helpful for people in our community. But I thought it was a great app, so thank you for sharing that.
Thank you.
That's all I have, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, thank you. Councilwoman Mancini?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Dave, first off, thank you for the help with the signs there a little bit, and the ones that hopefully, maybe this week, whenever they come through it, I'd appreciate that, and I appreciate your help with that. One of the things, Dave, is later this afternoon, I had a resident call me from an area over by Dolores, and I think Mr. Troyer kind of touched on cutting through. Well, I think cutting through probably applies to maybe 10, 12 of our secondary main streets, and then would be the off streets of, what would you say, Smith, Snow, stuff like that. And he'd wanted me to come see it. It was actually between my ward and Ward 3, between it would be between Snow, on Dolores, between Snow and all the way to Holland. But I sat over there by, it was over by Paulding. Not that there was a lot of speeding, but there was a lot of conducive traffic, very lot of traffic. And I know what people are doing. They're making that right onto Dolores so they don't have to go down to Smith and Snow and make that right, so they're cutting through. But you'll have that on the, you have that numerous spots. And I know you hit it on your report very well. They're very busy this summer, both police and fire. Is there any way we could maybe get some kind of monitoring on that? Maybe besides that speed limit sign, because on Dolores there was a lot of it today. He was absolutely right. Again, a lot of traffic, so it was kind of hard to speed. But he tells me come back. He says, "Well, come up after your meeting, and you're going to see them flying through." Well, as I walk out in the ward, I hear that a lot. I mean, almost at every street, they're going to tell you, "Hey, they fly down my street." But on them secondary mains, would you like at Dolores? I would say my ward, Richard, you know. Birchcroft, streets like that. So, thank you.
Through the chair to the councilman, we have been addressing the driving in the neighborhoods. We have special attention assigned to areas as I become aware of them. I believe last council meeting, actually 2 council meetings back, Remora had come up. And we have put extra policemen in that area at times during the rush hour. Today is a bad day in order to judge anything because of the incident on 71.
Right.
So today's not a good day to judge the traffic flow in the neighborhood. But if I'll tell you what I'll do. I will certainly mention to the police department and put Dolores on for attention. If that was, with that, you think that would help, I would certainly do that.
Yeah, because, you know, I have seen them out. Now, I would say I've been out a little earlier in the mornings as of late, and I have seen them out. And I have seen them pull them over down here on Holland Road, and you know, I seen some on Smith, a couple on Hummel. So, you know, I can by no means not say they're not out, but I just want to address what a couple of the, you know, the residents have been saying, as I've heard again, home days and my little trials here through Ward 2. But I just wanted to relay that to you. Not that they're not doing their job. The guys do a great job, but I know they do have their hands full besides just handing out tickets too. So, but Dave, I thank you for your response. I appreciate it. And that's all I have, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Council, any other questions, Safety Director? Councilman Troyer.
Thank you, Mr. Council President. Mr. Safety Director, Mr. Burns. First, I want to mention that, you know, the Dolores problem may go away now that, or not go away, but may transfer to Fry now that Fry is open, because I think they might cut down there. It's a nicer street. Dolores is in bad shape. Anyways, just one of the safety directors wanted to take my hat off to the police officer who figured out an ingenious way to, let's say, stage to stop speeding on Fry. I don't know if you're aware of what he was doing. I could talk to you at it, but I was really impressed with the way he set up over there, and it's a good thing. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Any other questions of the Safety Director or comments towards him? Seeing none, thank you, Mr. Burns. We'll move to the Law Department. Mrs. Horvath.
Thank you, Mr. Council President.
At the present time, the city has two pending cases. I believe we've discussed both of these cases before at meetings. One is a foreclosure matter that we're involved in because we have a lien against the property. In that particular case, there is service by publication, which is taking place. So nothing further will happen in that matter until service is completed. The other case, which is 16644 Snow Road LLC versus Brook Park, we have some motions that are pending before the court. Plaintiff's motion to amend their complaint and the city's motion to dismiss. Both of those have been recently filed and will be calendared by the court, or the court will dispose of them probably at a later date. Other than that, those are the two pending actions that we have. I wanted to inform council that the law department will be changing some of its procedures. At this point in time, we will be investing in an embossed stamp. We will probably also be going to watermarked paper. And in all likelihood, we will go back to having a copy of every piece of legislation, each page that we submit to the council office, stamped. There may be some other procedures in the future that we will look at undertaking, but those things are being done in reaction to the issues that we've had with regard to legislation, both last month and in November of 2015. So other than that, I have nothing to report.
Okay, thank you. Counselor, are there any questions to the Law Department? Councilman Troyer?
Thank you, Mr. Council President. Madam Law Director, I just have one question. What was the address on Snow Road again?
I believe it's 16644. And hopefully my memory is accurate in that. You know, obviously the numbers repeat.
Okay. And let me think here. Well, when legislation comes up, I'll ask you about these other items. Thank you. That's it.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions of the Law Department? Seeing none, thank you. We'll move on to the Finance Department. Mr. Single?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The annual audit was completed in June. Right now, we're waiting for the auditor of state to sign off on the audit. Once the auditor of state does so, we will place the report online and also send the report to print. Mr. Chairman, members of council, just a brief update on income tax collection through June 30th. We are on pace to meet the budgetary amount of $19,100,000. So we'll keep you apprised on that, but right now we are on pace to collect the amount that was projected, and again, that amount is $19,100,000. And also, Mr. Chairman, finally, the mayor and I are working on an ordinance that will amend the appropriation ordinance passed earlier this year in March by City Council. You should see that here in the next month. So we'll be working on that, updating the capital improvement budget and moving some funding around in the general fund and other funds as deemed necessary. And that concludes my report tonight, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Single. Any questions of Finance Department? Mr. Mancini?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Greg, if I could, that 19,100,000, is that, like, was that a projection? Is that where you guys felt we would be this year?
Through
For
the chair
that?
to Councilman Mancini.
From yeah.
Yeah, our projection this year was 19.1 million. Last year's collection was, I believe, about 19.6 million, so we projected down, mainly due to the decrease in the automotive industry, due to the signing bonus over at Ford Motor Company. But again, we are on projection. Again, we're trending a little bit higher than 19.1 million, but we'll continue to keep a close eye on it and apprise council here in the future meetings.
Okay, appreciate it. Thank you, Greg. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Council, any other questions? Finance? Councilman Troyer?
Thank you, Mr. Council President. Through the chair to the Finance Director, Mr. Single. I'm going to go over a couple ordinances here because kind of already brought up what I was going to talk, part of what I was going to talk about, and you did send we did get a memo about 3 or 4 o'clock today about that, which you just discussed. But, you know, because I I've discussed in the past, I believe we should have a quarterly update to our budget, our appropriations, to know where we're at. And you said you're in the process of doing that. One of the issues here is on the lease purchase of the tasers. We appropriated $20,000 and $20,000. And this ordinance doesn't really state how much goes to which, and now this goes up to $61,000 for the total deal. And do you have the numbers for us on which fund, 270, how much comes from 270 and how much comes from 401, so we could correct this legislation and make it proper?
Through the chair to Councilman Troyer. It'll be a 50-50 split. So the total amount this year to be expended is $9,960. $4,980 would come out of the capital improvement fund, and $4,980 would come out of the law enforcement fund, Fund 270.
Okay. All right, so, and I have to go back, when it comes up, we'll have to go back to the law director on that and see what we want to put in there, but that's, because right now it just reads fund number 270 and fund number 401, doesn't say how much, and the budget, we appropriated 20 for each. So, and if we did that, that means we're on the other side of it, so, okay. Just making notes here. Okay, and then, and also, with this change of the budget, would you, I would request that you and the mayor look into, as we discussed, with the, there seems to be a little money left over from the bids on the roads program, and we discussed adding more money to the crack sealing program to repair our streets and/or to repair our streets. So we talked at the time for $50,000. So I would like to see that in the updated budget, an appropriation for another $50,000 for crack sealing, as council discussed. So that'd be something I'd like to see in there. Then I go to the SUVs. No, I am good. That's it. Thank you.
Council, any other questions of finance? Mr. Singal, I have just two questions. I think you've answered them before, but I don't remember what the answer was. On the appropriations report, that one column that you have, because you've changed the reports over from the last year, and so it's titled excess C/O budget. Can you explain that again to me? I think you explained it once before a while ago, and I really don't remember what that is.
Yeah, that, Mr. Chairman, that is actually the amount that was carried over from last year, some encumbrance from last year that was carried over.
Okay,
And not spent. So you add the two together. So if you looked at the first page of the appropriation report under council, there's excess CO of $243.79. You would add that to the unencumbered balance.
Okay, so the outstanding encumbrances column, that's what's been committed to already this year?
Currently encumbered, right, as of
The other one is
June
just
30th.
what was budgeted last year but wasn't spent. Okay,
Correct.
thank you. The other question I have deals with under the income tax section. I think it's page 34 of 64. On the refunds, you know, like this year, and I know in the last couple of years when we've done it, but this year we appropriated $1.175 million for refunds. You know, we've never really, I just wonder if you can give an explanation for that, because my main question, I guess, would be, if we don't spend all that, is that still encumbered, or is that, if it's not paid throughout the year, is it freed up? So if, in other words, if, say we only pay out $400,000 in refunds, what happens to the $775,000 difference?
Mr. Chairman, the first quick answer to your question is it's not encumbered. So as of June 30th, there was an amount encumbered in refunds. If the amounts aren't spent, those dollars stay in the income tax fund. And as I stated earlier to council, I think during budget talks, we have a few fairly large economic development rebates that potentially may need to be expended out of the income tax fund. So, we'll continue to monitor it, and if the payments aren't made, those dollars will be freed up in the near future.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Stingle. Okay, seeing no other questions to the Finance Department, we will conclude under letter I. We will move to letter J, which is other communications and petitions and verbal approval and introduction of new legislation. We have a resolution that's being introduced by Councilwoman Powers. It's a resolution that will honor Dorothy McCooch for celebrating her 100th birthday on August 15th, 2017. We'll place that in the Legislative Committee. That's all the council clerk has. Do any members of council or the mayor have legislation that they're introducing tonight? Seeing none, we'll move the agenda. That concludes items under letter J. We have nothing under letter K. We will move to letter L, which is remarks from the audience on the ordinances and/or resolutions that pertain to items on the agenda. Tonight's agenda, we have 4 items. First item is an ordinance that authorizes the mayor to enter into an agreement for purchasing police tasers. The second ordinance deals with entering into a contract to purchase 4 SUV cars for the police department. The third ordinance is approving the editing and inclusion of the codified ordinances for the city of Brook Park. And the fourth, we have a resolution that's designating July 28th, 2017 as the appreciation day for the service workers in the city. Those are the 4 items that are on the agenda tonight. If anyone from the audience wants to get up and speak on any one of those 4 items, this is the part of the agenda to do that. So if anyone wants to come, please come to the podium, give your name and address, and you can address any one of those 4 items. Seeing no one coming forward, we'll move out of letter L and we'll go into letter M, the introduction of ordinances and resolutions on first reading. Item number 1 is ordinance number 10,091-2017.
Introduced by Mayor Coyne, authorizing the mayor to enter in a contract with Axon Enterprise Incorporated without public bidding for the lease/purchase of 30 new police tasers and the trade-in of 30 used police tasers and declaring an emergency.
Move to amend.
There's a motion to amend. Councilman, would you state your amendment?
Yes. And I'd like to clarify this with the finance director, make sure I have the right amount. Section 2 should be changed, and I'd like to, also with the help of the law director. Section 2 reads, "The money needed for the aforesaid transaction shall be paid from Fund Number 270 Law Enforcement Fund and Fund Number 401 Capital Fund, theretofore appropriated or to be appropriated for said purpose." Now, this has changed. The original amount was 2020, and that's changed to a lease. If I'm correct, through the chair to the finance director, is that correct?
Through the chair to Councilman Troyer, it's a lease purchase, at the end.
So now that number is, the number each will be 4,980, as you quoted earlier?
Through the chair to Councilman Troyer, based on the quotation, this is for council's knowledge here tonight, this is a quote, this isn't the actual invoice. So it may come in a little bit higher than that, it may come in a little bit lower than that, but again, based on this quote that was prepared on, actually the quote expired on June 30th, that was the amount in this quote.
Okay.
And to make the, I don't know that to put a dollar amount in it is actually necessary, per se. It's gonna be, if you wanna change it to say a 50-50 split, so 50% would come from capital improvement and 50% would come from the law enforcement fund. If it comes in at 12,000, we would know to pay it 6,000 from, process it and pay it 6,000 from the capital improvement fund and 6,000 from the law enforcement fund.
Okay, all right. As you were talking, I was actually thinking along those lines. Okay. So let me think here for a second, and the law director would, not ready for you yet, but if you have any suggestions, go ahead. Okay, so we could just leave that the same, and then at the end, we don't, you're saying we don't have an amount, we want to make it a little higher, so 12,000 through the chair of the finance director.
Mr. Chairman, through the chair to Mr. Troyer, I don't think you need an amount, to be honest. I
Okay,
think all
all
you
right,
need to do is
so-
just put in 50% from each fund, and then when the order's placed and the payment is made, we'll know how to properly pay it.
Okay. One moment.
And it'll also come through Board of Control as well, so you'd see it on Board of Control as well.
Hold on, Mr. Troyer. Mrs. Horvath,
Okay.
you have a point, hold on,
All right.
Mr. Troyer. You have a point of information, Mr. Director?
Yes, thank you, Mr. President. My suggestion would be to add the word equally in there. It seems like the intent is to pay 50% from each fund. So perhaps it should read, the money needed for the aforesaid transaction shall be paid equally
Okay,
from
like
each
it.
of those funds, and it would be quite easy to insert that one word into the legislation.
Okay. Thank you. All right, so that'll be my amendment to, see how we all work together? The money needed for the aforesaid transaction shall be paid equally, will be added, from Fund Number 270 Law Enforcement Fund and Fund Number 401 Capital Fund. Okay, that's my amendment. Can I get a
Is there-
second?
Is there a second for the
Yes,
amendment?
second.
Okay, amendment's been made, been proposed, it's been properly seconded. Is there discussion on the amendment? Seeing no discussion on the amendment, clerk, please call the roll on the amendment.
Troyer,
Yes.
Powers,
Yes.
Mancini,
Yes.
Scott,
Yes.
Bergio,
Yes.
Salvatore,
Yes.
Okay, the amendment's been
Okay.
approved.
Okay, council, I have one more amendment on this. I think just to eliminate wording that doesn't need to be there at the end of section 2, or to be appropriated for said purpose, doesn't really need to be there. Madam Law Director, do you concur in this case?
I would prefer to leave it in. Even if it's a little bit added verbiage, I think it clarifies rather than, it's more important to be clarified than simplified.
Okay, All
Mr.
right.
Chairman, if I may comment on it?
Point of information, go ahead, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you very much. That covers if it's more than $5,000, so technically, council's action is appropriating the amount said in the quote, or if it's a little bit more, that to be appropriated covers it.
yeah, I get it. May I, Mr. Chairman?
Go ahead, Mr. Troyer.
Okay. But I think we already appropriated 20,000 each on this, so we're well within that reason. But okay, that's fine. So I'll rest my case, thank you.
See how good we work together?
Okay, council, the ordinance number 10,091/2017 is still before you.
Motion to suspend?
Support.
There's been a motion to suspend. It's been properly supported. Discussion on suspension. Councilman Troyer.
Thank you, Mr. Council President. Anybody like to speak on the reason to suspend on this? I'd appreciate it. Anybody like to give a reason for suspending? Mr. Salvatore, you suggested suspending earlier.
I think the motion to suspend speaks for itself. We're going to be going back into another summer session. There's no reason to delay it. It's for our safety forces, and we put, I believe, and I've always believed, that we put the best available equipment in the hands of the people who are protecting the community.
Okay,
If I may, Mr. Chairman.
Go ahead if you can clear it up.
Thank you, thank you. It's the summer. You got a lot of picnics, a lot of things going on, and as I stated before, the caucus meeting, I would say an officer next to his partner and somebody in law enforcement could probably tell me a lot better, but is his weapon. And it's always hopeful that they would never have to use them. I mean, that's probably hopefully last resort. But it is the summer months. As Mr. Salvatore stated, we are hitting another 2 weeks up here. And, I would prefer to help out our police department in any way we can. And, I don't think this is really asking for a real lot. I don't think this is one where we got to sit here till 12 at night and be kicking this back and forth across the room. So that's all I have, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Mrs. Powers?
I would just like to know why we need 30. Is that one for each policeman that's on duty? Why we need all new ones all at one time? And if we're trading them in, what is the life expectancy of a taser, and what is the value of a used one? Do they get rebuilt, or are they just finished? I mean, what's the trade-in value of a used taser?
Mr. Chairman,
Go ahead, Mr. Mayor.
I believe the chief gave a long report of it, but I'll try to strike it from memory, is that I think some of these tasers are substantially beyond 5 years. The warranties for 5 years on these. Every policeman should have his own. I think the chief explained to you why they keep them charged, the liability of the officer carrying them. And to my knowledge, each one would have it. I don't know what they're worth, if anything. I really didn't look through the quote to see it. I don't imagine much. But I wouldn't put a rebuilt firearm in the hands of our police department. I certainly wouldn't put a rebuilt taser in the hands of our police department either.
Question was just, can they be rebuilt?
But from my standpoint, I think that I wouldn't do that. This seems to be a reasonable expense for protecting our police, and it's always preferable, I guess, if you have to subdue somebody to that extent, the taser is preferable to a firearm. So they're equally as important. And I thought the chief gave a very detailed explanation as to why this was his recommendation.
Any other discussion on the motion? Councilman Troyer?
Thank you, Mr. Council President. I don't know, I guess I know what the legislation speaks for itself means, but also the reason we have rules and the reason it requires 6 positive votes to pass suspension, there's a reason for that. So that rule speaks for itself. So I'm just looking for a good reason to suspend this tonight. And I was just wondering if maybe the safety director can enlighten us a little bit on that.
I'll speak to that, Director, if you don't
Well,
mind.
I asked.
That's okay.
I did ask the
I will
safety
choose.
Gentlemen, please.
My rule is
one at
I
a time.
speak for the
One at a
administration.
time.
So I will speak for the administration on this. The 6 votes is there for reasons, like you said, there are rules for that. But these are just really housekeeping issues, and why you would want 3 readings all it does is lengthen the time that we get these new pieces of equipment in our police hand. I can't think of a reason why you wouldn't suspend, rather than justifying why you have to. If you can't do that, sir, vote no. And thank you for your indulgence, I appreciate it.
Councilman Troyer?
Thank you, Mr. Council President. Had not said how I would vote on this. I plan on voting yes on suspension, because this is something that the residents, the police officers need, because we have some that are out of commission. And but the fact of the matter is, this is a non-bid contract, which is an issue for some people. So I'm trying to get a good reason, present a good reason to everybody why this should be suspended tonight. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, if I may, I gave you the best reason that there is. You can think of any reason why you can't. It sounds to me like you're trying to convince yourself. So the fact is, yes, the people voted on a charter, they voted on rules, but they expect their elected officials to common sense to use those rules as they apply to the needs of the city. So if you can't find in your own heart a good reason to suspend, you said you were going to, why are we having all this discussion? Apparently, you convinced yourself it's the right thing to do. Do the right thing, Councilman.
Let's just not go back and forth, gentlemen.
I
mean,
agree.
We've both stated your positions.
Well,
We don't
I
need to
just,
speak
I
three or
just
four
don't need
times.
anybody to tell me how to vote. I'm capable
Mr.
of
Chairman,
making up my
Sorry,
own mind.
gentlemen, come on.
Mr. Chairman, question to the chair. Did you hear me say, telling him how to vote? I says, if you don't approve it, vote no. I didn't tell him how to vote. So would you clarify that for me? Did you hear me say, this is how you must vote this way? I didn't tell him that. Thank you.
Okay, seeing no other discussion, we'll vote on suspension.
Salvatore,
Yes.
Bergio,
Yes.
Scott,
Yes.
Mancini,
Yes.
Powers,
Yes.
Say yes.
Troyer,
Yes.
Suspension's been approved.
Move to adopt.
Support.
There's been a motion to adopt. It's been properly supported. Discussion on adoption. Seeing none, I'll ask the clerk please call the roll on adoption.
Bergio,
Yes.
Scott,
Yes.
Salvatore,
Yes.
Troyer,
Yes.
Powers,
Yes.
Mancini,
Yes.
Adoption's been approved, so ordinance number 10,091-2017 has been adopted under suspension of the rules.
Is that 6-0?
I'm sorry?
Is that 6-0?
Yes.
Okay, I didn't hear Ms. Powers.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, we'll move to item number 2, which is ordinance number 10,092-2017.
introduced by Mayor Coyne, authorizing the mayor to enter in a contract with Bob Gillingham Ford for the purchase of 2000 Ford, oh my goodness, let me start over. Authorizing the mayor to enter in a contract
the
with
reset
Bob
button.
Gillingham Ford for the purchase of 4 new 2017 Ford Utility Interceptor SUVs and declaring an emergency.
Move to suspend.
Support.
There's been a motion to suspend. It's been properly supported. Is there any discussion under suspension? Councilman Troyer?
Thank you, Mr. Council President. Can anybody give me a reason to suspend on these?
Mr. Chairman, if I may,
Mr. Chairman, if I may.
Councilman Mancini?
thank you, Mr. Chairman. Oh, boy, where do I start here? Okay, we have police cars that run for maybe 24 hours a day. We have police officers that are continuously stopping and going, sitting at lights. Oh, I could go on and on.
Please don't.
I won't. So let's give our police force the tools that they need to do their job for our community. That's what we need to do. Our police, our safety forces, this isn't where we want to be playing games. Let's get this done. All right? That's what I have to say on this. And I thought the chief was very eloquent when he talked about the tasers, when he goes to these conferences.
Point of order.
And they all use the same.
Hold on, Mr.
It's off
Mancini.
topic.
What's-
It's talking about tasers instead of police SUVs.
I'm going to the police thing if you'd let me finish. I let you finish.
I'm going to allow him a little leeway to go forward on the police discussion.
Thank you, Mr. Council President. I appreciate that. He said the same with the cars. Thank you. He said the same with the cars. Okay? He said what a reputable company they were. Again, this isn't the place we should be playing around. I'm for our safety forces, and I'm for moving ahead, and I'm for getting them the best equipment we could get. And the chief seems to feel that way, and so do I. That's all I have, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman.
Go ahead, Mr. Salvatore.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think the real question here is, we shouldn't be asking ourselves, why should we suspend? The question should be, why not? And that's the question I'd like to ask you, why not? You tell people you don't want people to tell you how to vote, but then you want a reason to suspend. I mean, what is the problem with suspending to help to move forward for our safety forces? Especially when you're going to vote for it anyway. And if you're not, then just say so, vote no, and we can move on. I'd like to call the question, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, we'll continue discussion. There was a call for the question, but no support, so go ahead, Councilwoman Powers.
I'll support it.
I
Councilwoman Powers.
have, as you know, I always have a problem with declaring an emergency. And with this one, I also have a problem with being asked to support something after the time has passed. The deadline to order police vehicles is July the 15th, 2017. So why are we be asking on the 18th to suspend? Why wasn't this brought to us before July the 15th? That was the last time to be, to decide on this. So if it had been brought up earlier, we wouldn't have to have this question of vote to suspend. So I don't like voting to suspend when we plan ahead, then you don't have to vote to suspend.
Mr. Chairman?
Vote ahead, plan ahead, get it to us in time that we can go through the discussions and make the decision before it has to be done as an emergency. And it's past, even as an emergency, it's already past the time that it should have been voted for.
Mr. Chairman?
That's all I have, Mr.
Councilman
Chairman.
Troyer
Thank
and
you.
then the mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Council President. Okay, well, seeing as how a member has already called for the question, didn't get a second, but it's going to happen again. You'll probably see it a lot the next 6 months. Because what that does is it ends any kind of conversation or debate so the council can have a talk out here and actually get the facts out what we're doing. Now, let me give you some facts. The fact of the matter is that these cruisers were already ordered. Now, I'd like to ask the safety director when they expected delivery or when these would arrive at Gillingham. So I'd like to get that and then reserve the right to come back to me and state some more facts and ask some more questions. So through the chair to the safety director, when do we expect, since they are already ordered, when do we expect to get these in?
Mr. Burns, if you can provide that information?
Through the chair to the councilman, you have information that I'm not aware of. I am not aware of the fact that they've been ordered. I can double check and get back to you, but I have not been privy to any order of any cars. The chief was here to give testimony on why we took bids and didn't use the state contract. I don't believe any order has been forthcoming from the city yet. I believe he presented the reasons why we need the cars and why we didn't go under the state contract and why we look for a local dealer that could provide these cars. I'm not aware of any letter of intent. There may be a letter of intent that we're going to order them, but I don't believe they've been ordered, and they're not in production, and we're waiting for council to move. That's my answer.
Okay.
So
If I may
Thank
continue.
you, Mr. Burns, for providing that information. They haven't been ordered yet, he said.
Okay, my information and according to the information we were given, as Councilwoman Powers already stated, had to be ordered by the 15th on our quotes, and my information from the gentleman at Gillingham was July 7th. And they just needed a letter of intent, not necessarily a PO or anything. And if they weren't ordered by that date, we'd have to order 2018s, which would cost more money, which makes this whole piece of legislation null and void. The other issues I have with this legislation is, since we're avoiding state pricing, not that it's good or bad, avoiding the bidding process, not saying it's good or bad, this was introduced under discussion at a caucus meeting, so it didn't take the normal route and get introduced at a regular council meeting. And, you know, these amounts were passed in the budget, which we passed at the end of March. So all of a sudden acting like we're in a big rush for these things is disingenuous at best. Now, I believe, based on the people I talked to and what I've read, that these are already been ordered. So there is no holdup in not passing this. And I'd like to see this legislation better written, where it states why we're not going with state pricing, not going with open bidding, and just have have it written a little bit better, and the amount in section 2 of what we're spending. I think that would make for a much better piece of legislation. So again, on this one, I'm going to be no on suspension, and it does not held up. And my belief is, from the facts I've been able to garner, is that this does not hold up these cruisers coming on service at all. And the reason I suspended on tasers, because I think it would. so I suspended on those. But this does not hold up these cruisers, so I'm not going to suspend it. I think this legislation needs to be written a little better, and then I'd vote for it. Of course, again, let me state again, I'm for these cruisers. I have no problem with it. But our cruisers are not falling apart. They're not breaking down. Things happen to them. I think we put a transmission in one, but things happen. We're repurposing these cruisers. There's no rush. They're getting repurposed, and this does not slow it down. So again, I'm no on suspension. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, may I now speak?
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Mr. Troyer, from my understanding is the people from Gillingham said you said they had the order. We never told them that. It's not unusual for a letter of intent to be signed. We made a presentation to council by the chief, and we explained to you, we're still waiting, I believe, for one car, maybe two, from 2016 under the state pricing program. So they're not absolute. And there's a separation, their contract for various service performed under it. And it was frustrating to our police officers. So I challenged the chief to go out and get proposals and take the state proposal under consideration. You heard his reason for the recommendation. In checking with the finance department, it is proper to get proposals. As long as you get 3 proposals, they're presented to council and council takes action. You've already appropriated for these and passed these in your budget, as you said. So you, sir, the only one who told anybody that they had an order was you. That's a fact. That's what we have come back for. So vote no, and we'll hold up, and we'll lose this pricing, and we'll come back with a new piece of legislation, and we'll pay more for the cars. And the cars are being repurposed into the building department and other issues. The wear and tear on these cars from idling, you heard the chief tell you all the reasons why. So if they're not good enough for you, then of course you should vote no. But don't come up with 15 different things that you heard or you said. And the fact of the matter is, who told you that? Because they're telling us something different. And quite frankly, you have no business interfering in the purchasing process of the city. Your job is to appropriate the money. We make the legislation, we present it to you, and you take action accordingly. But my information that I have that came through the ranks is that you told them they had the order. I have signed no letter of intent with them whatsoever. Would I, if I believed the council was going to pass at the next council meeting and was going to save the city the money? Sure I would. And that's the way that we do it. You always say that you're the, what do you say it? You're my conscience, I call you that, and you're the lifeguard of the people's money. Well, this is the people's money. And for a lot of good reasons, this was the best proposal. And there's no difference between a proposal and a bid. It's the same thing. I think you continue to fail to comprehend how those processes work. So I would ask council, the other members of council, if they would all vote for suspension to move forward. If not, and they will not honor this quote, hopefully when you do pass it, that they will honor what the proposal was. I'm not certain that they will. So we go from there. So please do not vote for it if you don't think it's the proper thing. I would not want you to do the wrong thing, Councilman.
Okay, Council, the motion before you is on suspension. I want to try to get back to the discussion being on suspension and not on motives and actions, so. Councilman Troyer?
Okay, thank you, Mr. Council President. Again, the reason I would not suspend on this tonight is because I don't think the wording in the legislation states what we're actually doing. I'm not saying that anything's wrong with the process of the way we're doing it, because it was explained to us, as you said, by the parties involved. But I don't think the wording in the legislation lays it out straight enough and clear enough that it shows what we're doing and why. That's my problem with the legislation. And the other reason is, and it says on the 3rd page, you got the legislation, the 1st page.
Mr. Chairman, point of order. I
Police
thought we were
Department.
talking about suspension. You're letting them
The other
go on and on.
the other reason I'd vote no on suspension is because there is no rush, because we had to have already ordered them. because on this, the first page of
Chairman,
the,
would you clarify what he just said? You said we already ordered them?
we would had to have to get the
Did
pricing,
you
to
say?
get the
Did you- but you-
2017.
Did you say we already
says-
ordered them?
Oh, this
Okay.
time
It
he
says
said-
the deadline to order police vehicles is July
Gentlemen, let's
15th,
speak in a normal tone,
2017.
and let's just, like I said before, we don't need to
Is
repeat
that,
it.
is that not right?
Councilman,
Mr. Safety Director, is that not right? Through the chair to the Safety Director.
Mr. Chairman, point of order.
Councilman, what's your point of order?
The only discussion that can be allowed at this point is on the suspension. You've given this body a great deal of latitude. I think this discussion is over. I think everybody knows in this room and at home how Mr. Troyer is going to vote, so I'm asking to call the question. That's all that's left to do.
Support.
Okay, there's been a call for the question. It's been properly supported. There's no discussion on it. It does need 2/3 to pass. So clerk, please call the roll on suspension. I'm sorry, I'm calling for the question.
Salvatore?
Yes.
Scott?
Yes.
Bergio?
Yes.
Troyer?
Yes.
Powers?
Yes.
Mancini? 6.
Question's been called for, so we will move to the motion to suspend. Clerk, please call the roll on suspension.
Salvatore?
Yes.
Scott?
Yes.
Bergio?
Yes.
Troyer?
No.
Powers?
No.
Mancini?
Yes.
4-2.
Suspension has not been approved, so ordinance number 10,092-2017 has had its first reading. We will move to item number 3, which is ordinance number 10,093-2017.
Introduced by Council President Astorino, approving the editing and inclusion of certain ordinances as parts of the various component codes of the codified ordinances, providing for the adoption of new matter in the updated and revised codified ordinances, publishing the enactment of such new matter, repealing ordinances and resolutions in conflict therewith, and declaring an emergency.
Move to suspend.
Support.
There's been a motion to suspend. It's been properly supported. Is there discussion on suspension? Seeing no discussion, I'll ask the clerk to please call the roll on suspension.
Troyer?
Yes.
Powers?
Yes.
Mancini? Scott?
Yes.
Bergio?
Yes.
Salvatore?
Yes.
Suspension's been approved.
Move to
Counsel?
adopt.
Support.
Is that you, Councilman Salvatore, did you make the motion to adopt? Okay. It's been a motion to adopt, supported by Councilman Troyer.
Thank you.
Discussion on adoption? Seeing no discussion, clerk, please call the roll on adoption.
Salvatore?
Yes.
Troyer?
Yes.
Powers?
Yes.
Mancini?
Yes.
Scott?
Yes.
Bergio?
Yes.
Ordinance number 10,093-2017 has been adopted under suspension of the rules. We will move to item number 4, which is resolution number 19-2017.
Introduced by Councilman Salvatore and council as a whole, designating July 28, 2017 as the annual appreciation day for the Brook Park service workers in the city of Brook Park and declaring an emergency.
Move to suspend.
Support.
There's been a motion to suspend. It's been properly supported. Discussion on suspension. Seeing no discussion, I'll ask the clerk to please call the roll on suspension.
Bergio?
Yes.
Mancini?
Yes.
Powers?
Yes.
Troyer?
Yes.
Salvatore?
Yes.
Scott?
Yes.
Suspension's been approved.
Motion to adopt.
Support.
Been a motion to adopt. It's been properly supported. Is there discussion on adoption? Seeing no discussion, I'll ask the clerk to please call the roll on adoption.
Scott?
Yes.
Mancini?
Yes.
Powers?
Yes.
Troyer?
Yes.
Salvatore?
Yes.
Bergio?
Yes.
Resolution number 19-2017 has been adopted under suspension of the rules. That concludes the items under letter M, first reading. We have no items under letters N on second reading, and no items under letter O on third reading. So we move to letter P on the agenda, which is remarks from the audience on any subject matter. I will remind council or members of the audience, when you come to the podium, please give your name and address for the record. And our rule on permission required to address council, the rule says, persons other than members of council and city officers shall not be permitted to address council except upon introduction by the presiding officer. Each citizen must identify himself and his residential address for purpose of public record. Each citizen shall at all times during any regular or special council meeting conduct themselves in a professional manner. They shall not use offensive or threatening language to elected or appointed officials or to the attending public. They shall comply with the rules of council 2016-2017. It is recommended that speakers should address their comments to the chair and that the elected officials should be referred to by their official titles. For example, if the speaker is making a comment about Mr. Scott, the reference would be about the Ward 4 councilman. We ask the speakers to refrain from impugning the motives of elected officials and to please confine the remarks to legislative matters and city business. We ask the speaker to refrain from personal attacks. And any rule not specifically covered by council rules is determined by referral to Robert's Rules of Orders. And it is not the intention to strictly enforce the rules upon speakers, but order and decorum needs to be followed. If the chair asks the speaker to hold their remarks for a point of order or to give information, the speaker is asked to please stop speaking in order to listen to the chair. Go ahead, Ms. Cates.
Levain Cates, 15499 Remora. I have a couple questions here. Now, you got Mr. Councilman Troyer voting on and discussing issues on the police force when he's got a case with the Brook Park Police Department. I don't know that that is appropriate or if that would be legal in any stance, so I would prefer to have a, something from our law director. Is going to have to make a decision on that. You know how I am about conflicts. So, whoa, fly. So if we could get an answer on that, because that's kind of, if he's not voting for the suspension on these cars, because who knows? Who knows what the motive is?
We do understand the question. That part of the legislation's already been through the agenda. I'm sure that the law director, after the meeting or such, would be more than happy. At some point, she'll come up with a determination and do that. So I'm not sure. You know how it works as far as we usually do
I
the
do
remarks.
know how it works.
I just simply wanted to say we've heard your question, and we will probably respond to it. It just might not be tonight, but that matter is already over with, so we will
It may be over
We will
with,
do it for the future, I'm saying, but so.
but what's going to happen to this now?
Well, you've asked the law department, you seem to have asked the law department to come up with some sort of opinion or decision on that. She will do that, I'm sure, before the next meeting, and we will know so that.
What I'm saying is that if this is an illegal vote because there is a conflict with him and a criminal suit, then that whole thing would have to be thrown out. And then a whole new, whatever, special meeting would have to be made for this and this actual legislation. Thank you.
Thought you were going to the podium, Mr. Single. Scared me for a minute. You barely like to talk when you're at the table.
Good evening. Frank Hosmerl, 15942 Paulding Boulevard. I'm going to go back almost 2 years ago. I addressed my point to the city engineer, Ed Pytek, representing Euthenix, I believe it is, about the snow road work. And then the snow road work was postponed, of course. So that's where it's almost 2 years ago that I said that to Mr. Pytek, that I believe all of the exit and entrance ramps and the contiguous turning areas to make the left or right turns to those ramps or off those ramps should be a very strong material, much more than the asphalt. I suggested, since I don't know highway work, but that probably at least a heavier aggregate instead of as much emulsion as often is used in paving with asphalt. He never answered me about that. He just looked at me, and that was the end of that. Since that time, I talked to the mayor just a month and a half ago, and he told me to draw a sketch. Really, these inspectors do a lot of inspecting, and I think just by driving on the road, either going on to 71 or coming off, it rapidly deteriorates. I predict right now that the new road work, which they're doing, because I see they have not cut out the roadway for those ramps. They're working on them now from Fry Road all the way to the railroad overpass. And it's just by examination or inspection. That's what they're supposed to do and decide. They're scraping off the old asphalt, I don't know, 5 or 6 inches deep. And it looks like they're going to go do it the same old way they did it approximately 20 years ago. And it won't last more than 2 years. It'll be all rutted. The multi-axle, heavy moving equipment such as the asphalt batching material, which comes from places like Asphalt, Allied Asphalt over on 150th, just north of Brook Park Road, and all the concrete batchers that bring concrete off of Snow Road or onto Snow Road from Medina and other southern points from here tear up the road. Those multi-axle axles, those wheels don't turn on turns. They slide with whichever way the tractor's pulling them. And those roads will be rutted, I say, in 2 years or less, particularly in the July and August hot months, because I see they're only putting in asphalt. They're only scraping it down. On the contrary, though, for a comparison, let's compare a minute. There is some good comparison in this year's work. By the school off of Snow Road, I think it was Brookview Road that's going to be closing now, they used approximately 150 to 200 cubic yards of concrete. They totally cut out the entrance driveway, and by the way, most of that is actually on the Brookview School property, not Snow Road. Now, I know they have to make connections, so there's a certain amount that's understandable. But they cut all the way down to the soil. The concrete's about 1.5 feet thick, and that's where I come up with 150 or 200 cubic yards of reinforced concrete, and it was reinforced. There's rebars in there, plenty big enough to take big loads. But there's no batching plant trucks going into the school, and now the school's closing. So some private entrepreneur will buy for a nursing home, and they'll have a great driveway for a long time, at least all around the entrance door. Also, down by what's Park and Fly, all those, there's a couple of them, I can't remember all the names, for the airport. They cut the concrete out there. It was about 1.5 feet thick. Big trenches, a brand new concrete. That concrete was in decent shape by comparison to the I-71 access and exit ramps. I just don't understand why we don't have any influence on the ramps. I know the answer is, well, it's ODOT, and ODOT does their own thing on their highways. Okay, but we are the local city. And those streets, I mean, the ramps, the approaches, the turns that go on and off 71 have been disgustingly bad for years. And now that they scraped off, 5 or 6 inches of asphalt, and it looks to me like that's all they're going to do. So in 2 years, we'll be back where we are. Of course, in 10 years, they'll be worse than, they'll be a lot more like the one we have now. Because I think Snow Road was done almost 20 years ago, the mayor might remember. It was beautiful, but it didn't last long around that area. And I think, just by inspection is all you needed. There was no sketch needed, Mr. Mayor. I just wanted to point that out. And we already pay Euthenics to do our engineering. Mr. Piatek comes here sometimes, and he was there that day. And I think it's pretty bad, We're not getting our fair shake here. Now, maybe none of you go that way. Maybe you go east or go south through another direction that don't use the interstates from here. Maybe you go to Pearl Road and get on 71. But something's wrong with this picture. And again, it's the multi-axles that do it. They don't roll. They just follow the tractor. And what are they doing? They're ripping up the asphalt. Thank you.
I'm Charlie Troutman. I'm a Reberberger. I asked us for the whole, what does Mr. Tyler, do you go to the other meetings, you guys? The way he's up here talking tonight, is like he hasn't seen any of this stuff till tonight. You have to excuse me. I had a stroke in November, and I have a hell of a time talking. And that my question is, don't you allow him to go to the other meetings, but this. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'm Liz, 23065 Cedar Point Road. I just want to say something about the equipment for the police department, like the cars, the tasers and all that. Everything has to be kept up, okay? You can't wait down the road and make a decision at the last minute, oh, we need this equipment because our equipment failed. I come from a long family of police officers, fire department, you name it, okay? If these people need the equipment, they should get their equipment, okay? I can't comprehend why there's such a big ordeal about getting tasers and everything. If they need them, they need them, okay? Now, I don't know about you guys, but you know what? I would love to have a police officer come to my house, besides laughing at me, when I need him, and have the proper equipment, up-to-date equipment, and a nice car. Because we're all going to need a police officer sometime in our life, no matter if it's good or bad. Of course, I'm Brian with a hot dog. And, but, you know, my councilman, I don't know what your problem is, and I don't know why you can't comprehend. When they need something, we shouldn't even question it. I have a son that's a police officer. I've had uncles, I've had all kinds of relatives.
Ms.
And-
Sayers, just for some information, the tasers legislation was passed.
Well, okay then. But I don't want to hear any more about that the police officers can't have this or anything else. All right? If they need something, I want them to be able to have it. But anyway, okay, so it was passed. Excuse me, I wasn't paying attention because of the arguing and all the disagreements. But just want to say that the city is a mess, and I hope you guys can all work together and straighten it out. Because I can't comprehend anything that's going on here, and I can't comprehend anything that you guys are trying to pass or talk about or anything else, because this one over here confused me. He says something different. I can't comprehend anything. All I know is that I wish you guys would all get it together and let's move on, because it's getting ridiculous. And all the talk that's going on Facebook is getting really bad. And you told me not to point fingers, but you know who I'm talking about.
Ms. Sayers, if you can hold off for 1 minute, please.
No.
Yes, please.
Why?
Simply because it appears to me you're going down the line of
It appears to you.
Ms. Sayers, please.
It appears to you.
As a speaker, you've been called to order. I'm asking you to wait. I will let you continue to speak after we go through this.
Well, I don't want to listen to you because you
Well,
know
then
what?
if you don't want to listen to me, Ms. Sayers, I'm going to ask council if they want to allow you to continue without following our procedures and without listening to the chair.
Well, you don't listen
So I'm-
to what? You don't
hold
listen
on,
to
I will
anybody.
ask council.
Hold on a minute. You don't listen to
Councilman-
anybody.
Ms.
You
Sayers,
don't listen to
Ms. Sayers,
anybody.
please.
And you know what?
There's a
You and your
procedure.
family better stay out of
Ms.
my
Sayers-
life.
Ms. Sayers, you talk.
I don't have to.
Yes, you do.
No,
You
I
and-
don't.
And plus,
You don't listen to anybody.
I'm
You
lis-
don't do what you're told.
I'm listening to you say you wish we would start working together and following and learn how to do that, and I'm asking you to
You
just
only want to
hold-
hear what
hold
you
your-
want to
hold
hear.
your comments.
Only you
Hold
want.
your comments
You only
until I
listen
get
to what
direction
you
from-
want to hear. You only listen to what you want to hear. You only listen to what you want to hear, and you think
Ms.
you're
Ms. Sayers-
above all of us.
Ms. Sayers,
You're not.
please,
No, I'm done. And you just proved the point to me. It's all about you. Well, it is. Well, I did get my point across. Handle the truth, not my problem. Okay.
Thank you.
Roseanne Newman, 6289 Shaft Drive, Brook Park. I just wanted to address the suspension issue that keeps continuously coming up. I'm not exactly sure how long. I know some people are new on council, some people have been around, but go check out other city council meetings and see how they also suspend. Because a lot of time is wasted, and my time is precious, and it's very hot in here. And working with the state, like you kept referencing that, you know, July 15th, things needed to be ordered, excuse me, needed to be ordered by. If you've ever dealt with the state, whether it be the Board of MRDD, Ohio Department of Aging, Liquor Control, it always seems that they put processes in place, and they put them in place and say effective June 1st, this is going to take place, and then they don't notify anybody until after the fact, probably on June 15th. So take that in consideration. This has been going on for a few years. You should have a little bit of experience with this under your belt, so I encourage you. It's not that anybody's holding anything back from you, but it's the way that you know, the administration is bringing things forward as they get them, and some of these things are out of their hands, just like the information with the cars and having to order by July 15th. The other thing that I find just simply ironic is that I'm glad that finally the tasers did pass. At the caucus meeting on June 14th, or June 13th, I'm sorry, the police chief stood up here and answered many questions, gave enormous amounts of information. And I just find it ironic and mind-boggling why there's still questions. If there are questions, they need to be addressed before you come to council. And I find this really ironic, is that in the 11th hour of the budget, it was brought forward by, I believe, Mr. Troyer, to add more police to our police force. And that's something that needs to be done. You know, you should be planning now to do that for next year. But I just find it so ironic that you're going to vote against the suspension to give these guys the tools that they need to do their job. And, you know, go over and tell them that you didn't vote for the suspension, or you voted against it, or whatever. But I just find that totally mind-boggling. And, you know, I really hope that these last 4 months of this administration, or however long it is, 6 months, that the delays and all this conversation that just keeps going back and forth, these questions were answered. And it just does not seem that people are retaining it, remembering it, or whatever. So I encourage you to go maybe watch the live stream from the meeting before, so you can come here prepared. I don't know. Like I said, it blows my mind that you wanted to introduce more police officers, but wouldn't go ahead and suspend. So that's all I have.
Does anyone else from the audience want to come to speak at the podium? Seeing no one coming forward, we'll move back up to the dais. So that concludes the remarks from the audience on any subject matter. Council, at this time, I will take a motion to go into executive session for the purpose of attorney conferences pending litigation. There's no motion to do that, Mayor. So,
Motion to respond to the
Council,
audience.
at this time, I'll take a motion to go into the executive session for the purpose of attorney conference pending.
Motion so made.
How about a motion to respond to the audience?
Support.
His or mine?
Okay, there's a motion to go into executive session. The motion was made by Councilman Troyer, supported by Councilwoman Powers. Discussion on the motion? Seeing no discussion, I'll ask the clerk to please call the roll.
Troyer,
Yes.
Powers,
Yes.
Mancini,
The audience wanted to hear a response, but yes.
Scott,
Yes.
Bergio,
Yes.
Salvatore.
No.
You voted no?
He voted no.
So it's 5-1?
5-1.
Okay, so we will now go into executive session. I'd ask council, you can take a few minutes for comfort and then be back in the back room.
Mr. Chairman, I'm going to take this time. I know the council. Mr. Cosmerl. I'd like to answer Mr. Cosmerl if I can. Frank, I want to thank you coming up, and as you as an engineer, you know there are specifications set by ODOT for pavement. You're aware of that, okay? You're also aware that they set the terminus for projects. And usually that is related to exactly the snow road, I believe, is under the state route system, or in addition to the county route system, it used to be anyway. So therefore, they're the ones that set that. And the parameters of that project. We will argue about things, whether they should take the islands out, they should do this, they should do that. Ordinarily, in those business districts, schools are in commercial districts, they replace the pavement. They used to do we used to do partial aprons, which caused problems for us. So they go in and they do it, and they place it in kind. History will show that I went and testified, despite the objections of my Teamster friends, against the 51-foot trailers. For the very reason that you talked about, and for the primary reason is every one of those 51-foot trailers put a driver out of work. I don't believe they're necessary to meet the transportation needs. So every one of those trucks put a driver out. And you will see the damage that they do, not only on those aprons going in the interstate, every major intersection, go down to Ingle and Sheldon, go down to streets that they can't turn. It's not the drivers or the operators doing that. Please, I'm trying to speak to a resident if you give me the opportunity. Okay. Finally, let me tell you, at the same where I gave testimony in the State House, was I said someday they'll be pulling triples on the turnpike, and a lot of people kind of laughed at that table. And that's exactly what they're doing. So now 2 people out of work. So not only are they destroying the highway system, they're also putting 2 people out of a possible employment. So I wanted to answer your question. Okay, so we try to get what we can in the terminus of an ODOT project, but as you know, they set the specifications for that. Okay, and there's separate funds for that now. How they're transferring some of the turnpike funds are also interesting as well. So I thought you shouldn't have to wait around till all this time to answer your question. So thank you.
Okay, council, at this time, I'll accept a motion to adjourn the executive session.
So moved.
Motion so made.
Support.
Okay, motion by Councilman Salvatore, supported by Councilman Mancini, to adjourn the executive session. Seeing no discussion, clerk, please call the roll.
Salvatore,
Yes.
Mancini,
Yes.
Powers,
Yes.
Troyer,
Yes.
Perugio,
Yes.
Scott.
Yes.
Okay, so executive session is adjourned. I will now take a motion to go back to the regular order of business.
So moved.
Support.
It's been a motion made, properly supported. Seeing no discussion, clerk, please call the roll. Going back to the regular order of business.
Salvatore,
Yes.
Mancini,
Yes.
Powers,
Yes.
Troyer,
Yes.
Perugio,
Yes.
Scott.
Yes.
We are back to the regular order of business. We are to letter Q, which is adjournment.
Motion to adjourn.
Support.
There's a motion to adjourn, properly supported. Clerk, please call the roll on adjournment.
Salvatore,
Yes.
Mancini,
Yes.
Powers,
Yes.
Troyer,
Yes.
Perugio,
Yes.
Scott.
Yes.
This meeting adjourned at 9:09 PM. Thank you very much.